Matthew chapter 14. At that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus, and said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him." For Herod had laid hold on John, and bound him, and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, "It is not lawful for thee to have her." And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, "Give me here John Baptist's head in a charger." So at that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him." So it's telling the backstory of John the Baptist and how that he passed away. And when Herod heard of Jesus' fame, he said that John the Baptist, this man that the people had proclaimed is a prophet who he had beheaded, he was saying that's Jesus. Surely he's come back to life. So the story of how John was captured and why was that, he took his brother's wife, and John had, said, "It's not lawful for thee to have her. You can't do that by the law." And so he was, he had a vengeance and just a personal vendetta against John. So for Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, "It's not lawful for thee to have her." So, and he would have put him to death. So he's going to kill him, but he didn't, because the people, they viewed him as a prophet. So they counted him as a prophet. The multitude, he feared the multitude. He feared what the multitude would do to himself, Herod. So he didn't. And then, what happened? There was a daughter of Herodias who danced before them, pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised an oath to give her whatever she would ask. "I'll give you anything you want," he said, because she pleased him so much with her dance. It's probably a great sin in that. And she being instructed of her mother, so it was like a plot. It was already done. She said, "Give me here the head, John Baptist's head in a charger." So she knew exactly what she wanted. It was like a scheme, And before she even danced, her mother had instructed her, that she wanted John beheaded. And the king was sorry. He didn't really want to do that. He was sorry. But nevertheless, for oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it be given her. There's always this part where I'm like, I just want to charge here, I get the oath's sake, and that you're having dinner and stuff, but isn't there a way to negotiate at that point? If you're, if you really were scared of the multitude, or if you really did know that it was the wrong thing to do, couldn't you have done something? I think you could have. I hate it. I hate this part. I hate this so much. The king was sorry, nevertheless. It makes me really angry for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, M-E-A-T, so eating. He commanded it to be given to her, and he sent and beheaded John in the prison. Just so low, so dark. Such a dark way to, for people to plot and people to overcome the prophets, and it's just such a dark thing. And his head was brought brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. So dark, so dark. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. And when Jesus heard, he departed thence by ship into the desert place apart. When the people heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and healed their sick. So Jesus, who has power over sickness, he gets out of town. And I can't imagine, that's those feelings, the emotions, not just, it's just, not just the grief for losing a cousin, but also just, sick, that death could be waiting for him, at one plot, one wrong move, and it makes me pretty sad. And then you see him, he actually heads on out. His disciples came, took the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. So John has his own disciples. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship. So he took a ship to a desert place apart. So he gets out of there and goes to the desert. And what happens? People heard thereof. So the people heard about it, and they followed him on foot out of the cities. So they just start walking out of the cities to get to him. He takes a ship to the desert area, and they get to him, and then he has compassion, and his emotions come in. Jesus went forth. He saw a great multitude. That's a lot of people. It's like, remember what multitude was used earlier in Matthew 14 regarding the many people that Herod was afraid of if anything happened to John the Baptist. Well, Jesus saw a great multitude, a big group of people, was moved with compassion toward them. His heart went out to them. They had come all this way. He had gotten out by ship and out into the desert, and I can't imagine what he's feeling. So much grief, pain, and maybe pain because he knew what was to come, and knew that John had come before him, to proclaim that he was the Messiah. And I gotta, because a man from the desert is like the life of John the Baptist, that he'd live in the desert and wore camel skins and ate locusts as food, and he was different than honey. And then I don't know if you noticed where Jesus went, but took a ship and he went to a desert place. Reminds me of the time that John spent in the desert with the Lord and living, a prophet, and calling people to repent, and they just knew he was a prophet. They knew. That's why Herod was afraid of him, and then there Jesus, it was almost like to me, it seems like he goes straight for the desert. Just remembering John, where the Lord was with John, where John dwelt. So anyway, I started crying. It's his cousin, So he healed their sick. Jesus did 14:14, John 14:14. He moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, I'm real sorry, his disciples came to him saying, "This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away. They may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals." Jesus said unto them, "They need not depart. Give ye them to eat." Okay, so this is where the miracle's coming. Now you're like, okay, I see that they're in the desert. I see, what the disciples are saying, go to send them into the villages just so that they can, provide for themselves some food and maybe even lodging or things like that. But he says they don't need to go anywhere. They need not depart. They don't need to go anywhere. Feed them. And they said unto him, this is the disciples talking, "We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. We have here but 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. Two fish. This isn't much. I mean, would this be enough to feed the disciples and Jesus? 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. Not a big meal, but yeah. But for everyone else, they're gonna need some food. He said, "Bring them hither to me." He commanded the multitude to imagine all these people out in the desert. Commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass. I don't understand that, how it's the desert but it's grass, but I guess it's maybe the way that it is. Like the landscape, maybe I see desert as something different. It says, sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves. Maybe it's deserted land. Or desert with where grass can grow on sand. It's just in Florida, and there were lots of grassy areas, but they figured it out. Anyways, he took the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he just looked up to heaven, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. Multiplication. So 12 baskets were full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men. How did that happen? So it was a miracle. It was exciting. Besides women and children. I love that, for one, I imagine the voice of Jesus in the miraculous, that it could carry over that many people. That's significant to me because I sing and, teach as I sing, and I sing it to a group of, several different groups of people weekly, and their children. And sometimes, when my voice is weak, I've gotten to where, I'll wear a microphone, and the miracle in that Jesus can speak to those 5,000 and work with those 5,000 is significant to me. All right, so anyways, there's already a miracle to me within, the idea that there are 5,000 people there in the group that are just men, and then there's women and children, and so that's a huge group of people. So anyways, they're all fed. Pretty incredible, and there's 12 baskets left over of food. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and go before him onto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. So he sends his disciples off on a ship. Okay, this is great. He's like, okay, I'm going to send them away, and you go on a ship, and you go on, go before him onto the other side while he sent the multitudes away. I'll talk to the people, I'll take care of this. So he sent them in the ship, and when he sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. He needed some time alone. He needed to go up into that mountain to pray. He had the compassion, but he'd also gone to the desert, really. Got away right after John was beheaded, and went up into the mountain to pray. When the evening was come, he was there alone. He was all by himself in that mountain. Everyone, they listened to him, and they obeyed, and they went on their way. He healed their sick. He took care of their sick, and he'd fed them all, and they went on their way. So he was up on that mountain alone. The ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. I know you've had a night like that before. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. The wind was contrary, and it was a struggle. It was beating against the ship. It was opposing. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a spirit," and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I. Be not afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water." "Lord, if it's you, then call me to come out to you on the water." "Okay." And he said, "Come." When Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand. Okay, so we're going to go back a little bit. Jesus goes up on the mountain, and the ship's in the middle of the sea, and Jesus has stayed behind, sent the disciples ahead. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. Oh, Jesus will catch another ship. He sent them on ahead, and then the wind begins to be very boisterous, very contrary, and they're frightened. The fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out walking on the sea. Then they see, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus is walking on the sea. He's coming toward them, and they think it's a spirit, and they get really scared. See? He says to them, "Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." Be of good cheer, be happy for me, be of good cheer, cheer on up. It's me, be not afraid. Peter, what's he say? It's you, then call me out to come to you. Then what Peter do? He starts to walk on the water to Jesus. So not only Jesus is out there walking water, Peter is too. Peter's walking on the water too. He said, "Come," and when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. Now, it may be a shock to you. You may think this is a bit of a fairy tale type moment, but when you believe in creation, you believe in the story, then like imagining God has, power over the elements is no issue for you, because you know that he just healed the sick. You know that he had come back from the dead, that he even raised people from the dead. You've seen him cast out demons, you've seen him heal the sick, now you've seen him walk on water, you saw him multiply 5 loaves and 2 fishes into 12 baskets, plus enough food to feed 5,000 men, and then the women and children, and himself and the disciples. So if you believe, then you believe. So Jesus, what's he do? He walks on the water. He walked on the water. So, and Peter, when he was come out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. And when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, "Lord, save me." So he had the faith, to say, "Call me if it's you." He had the faith to take the steps when he saw the wind boisterous. So when he saw the wind boisterous, so when he saw the foe, like he knew who was in control of it all. Like if Jesus has control over the elements and he can walk on water himself, and Peter himself was walking on water, why should the wind make him fear? Why should the wind make him fear? Why should he fear the wind? Well, he's looking around, wasn't he? He was looking around. When he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. When he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" Because he'd seen Jesus walking on the water. He'd been walking on the water himself. He'd seen the multiplication of food to feed over 5,000 people. He'd seen miracle after miracle. He saw Jesus heal all the sick. So why would a little wind? Why why the little wind? Scare him, you know? Why would he need? Why would he need the help? Well, Jesus gave him a little rebuke, didn't he? He said, "Oh, thou of little faith." That's difficult, you know, when you're a disciple and you just walked on water with the Almighty Son of God. "Oh, you of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" Why'd you doubt me? Why'd you question things? We were walking. Why'd you question? And when they were coming to the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, "Of a truth, thou art the Son of God." When they were gone over, they came into the land. So this was like, came into the ship, the wind ceased. The wind didn't cease while they were out, you know, on the water, which could have happened. Jesus could have just, you know, caused the wind to cease. But it was interesting. It felt almost like a test. Almost felt like a test of faith, you know? And Peter got the rebuke instead. He said, "Oh, thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" And they were coming to the ship, the wind ceased. And what happens? Then they were that were in the ship came and worshipped him. Then they just start worshiping him. They say, "Of truth, thou art the Son of God." Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all the country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched were made perfectly whole. So as soon as he got into Gennesaret, word got out. So these people, they didn't need much. They just need to touch the hem of his garment, a little bit of his clothes, that's just the hemline, and then they were completely healed. So that's kind of, you know, the reputation that preceded him. And that's the whole of Matthew chapter 14.